Tale from the Ancient Silk Road, The Merchant and the Three Old Men. Arc 1, Binge Watch Edition. On the very first night, when the full moon rose high above the silent palace, Scheherazade began her tale. She said, "It is told, O king, that in times long past, in a land rich with wealth and the bustle of trade, there lived a prosperous merchant. His caravans were famed throughout the deserts and cities, laden with silks softer than the breeze, spices more fragrant than gardens in bloom, jewels that glittered like the stars, and gold that shone like the sun. He was known in every marketplace as a man of fortune. Yet, O king, fortune is but a guest that does not stay forever. One burning summer's day, after a journey long and weary, the merchant found himself wandering alone across a desert plain. The sand shimmered beneath the sun, as though the earth itself were aflame, and his body cried out for rest. At last, his eyes beheld a tall and ancient tree, its roots deep, its branches wide, its shade as cool as a flowing river. With gratitude in his heart, he sat beneath its sheltering arms. From his satchel, he drew forth a small meal, bread baked crisp, dates plump and sweet, and a flask of cool water. He ate, he drank, and, for a fleeting moment, peace returned to his soul. The whisper of the wind through the branches seemed like a lullaby, and the merchant thought himself safe. But alas, O king, beneath peace, danger often hides. When the merchant had eaten his fill, he cast the pits of the dates upon the ground. They fell lightly upon the sand, no different from countless times before. Yet, destiny had written otherwise. The earth trembled, the air grew heavy, and in a storm of dust and smoke, there appeared before him a figure most terrible to behold. A demon, tall as the palms that line the oases, with eyes burning like twin flames, and a voice deeper than thunder, rolling across the mountains. The demon roared, "Stand, man! By this pit you have slain my son. Careless though you were, your hand has struck him dead. And now, by the law of justice, I shall take your life in return." The merchant fell to the ground, trembling as a leaf quivers in the storm. His heart pounded as though it would burst from his chest, and he cried out in a voice of despair, "O mighty spirit, I swear I knew nothing of this. I cast the pit without malice, without thought of harm. Spare me, I beg you. Grant me but a single year, that I may return to my home, embrace my wife, kiss my children, settle my affairs, and prepare my soul for the journey beyond. At the year's end, I shall return to this place and submit to your justice, no matter the cost." The demon's fiery eyes narrowed. His form loomed above the trembling man, and silence stretched long, as though the world itself awaited judgment. At last, the demon spoke. "Very well. 1 year I grant you. But know this. Should you fail to return, no wall, no ocean, no mountain shall shield you from my wrath. Wherever you hide, I shall find you, and your life shall be mine." And with a crash of smoke and flame, the demon vanished, leaving only silence, and the merchant's heart heavy with dread. The year passed swiftly, O king, swifter than a falcon's flight. Each day was shadowed by the promise of doom, each night haunted by the memory of blazing eyes. Yet the merchant, faithful to his word, returned to the appointed place when the time was fulfilled. He sat beneath the very tree where fate had struck him, his heart burdened with sorrow. The desert wind whispered of endings, and he waited, trembling, for the demon to appear. But before long, 3 old men came upon him, each leading a companion most strange. The first led a gazelle, its eyes bright as jewels. The second held fast 2 black dogs, their coats gleaming in the sun. The third walked beside a mule, gray with age but steadfast in its steps. The men greeted the merchant kindly, and seeing his sorrow, asked, "Why do you sit alone with tears in your eyes, O man?" And the merchant told them his tale of the careless pit, the wrathful demon, and the doom that now awaited him. Even as he finished, the ground shook, the sky darkened, and the demon appeared once more in a roar of smoke and fire. His voice split the air. "Prepare yourself, merchant, for this day your life is mine." The merchant bowed his head, for he had no strength left to plead. But the first old man stepped forward, the gazelle at his side, and he raised his voice. "Wait, O mighty demon, let me tell you a tale most wondrous, most strange. If you find it more marvelous than the fate of this merchant, then grant him 1/3 of his life as my reward." The demon's burning eyes narrowed, and he said, "Speak, old man, I shall judge your tale." The man bowed and began his story. But here Scheherazade's voice grew soft, her eyes lowered, and she said, "O king, the tale of the first old man and the gazelle, that is a story for another night. If fate grants me another dawn, I shall tell it to you tomorrow." And the king, caught between curiosity and wonder, spared Scheherazade's life for yet another day. Thus ended the first night. The second night. On the second night, when the full moon rose high above the silent palace, Scheherazade began her tale. She said, "O king of time, fortune turns like the wheel of heaven, and none may know where its rim shall rest. Hear now the tale of the first old man and the gazelle." She continued, "It is told, O king, that there once lived a certain old man, wise in years and humble in spirit. He owned great herds and estates, fields of golden grain, and flocks beyond counting. But of all his treasures, he loved most dearly his wife and his son. The boy was the light of his eyes and the hope of his old age. Under his father's care, he learned to read the stars, to guide the herds, and to speak kindly to all creatures of the earth. His heart was gentle, and his laughter brought joy to the house. Yet joy, O king, is a bird that never stays long in one place. One day, while the old man journeyed far across his lands to collect his rents. He left his household under the care of his wife. She was fair to look upon, but dark in heart, and her soul was clouded with jealousy and deceit. For the old man had taken another wife in his youth, a woman of good heart, who had borne him this very son. The first wife, barren and envious, nursed her hatred in silence until it grew into a venom that poisoned her soul. When the husband departed, she went to a woman who dealt in forbidden arts, one who whispered to jinn and stirred the air with charms of ruin. Together, they plotted the destruction of the boy and his mother, where the moon was thin as a blade, and the night wind carried no sound. The sorceress came to the house. She drew strange signs upon the floor and muttered words older than men remember. Then she mixed powders of red and black and called upon spirits unseen. And lo, O king, when the dawn came, the sun was no longer a youth of flesh and bone, but a gazelle, graceful and silent, with eyes full of sorrow. His human tears glistened still upon his soft brown coat. The cruel wife laughed, for her revenge was complete. But the mother, awakening to the sound of hooves where her child once slept, fell to the ground, wailing her grief to the heavens. When the old man returned from his journey and saw his house in mourning, he cried out, "What is this sorrow that has befallen my home?" His first wife wept false tears and said, "O husband, your slave woman has bewitched your son and fled with her magic. The boy is lost forever." But the second wife, the true mother, could not speak for grief. She threw herself before her husband, crying, "It is I who am wronged. Ask the Lord to reveal the truth, for the guilty walk in shadow." The old man, torn between doubt and pain, sought the counsel of the wise, yet none could undo what had been done. He wept until his eyes grew dim and his beard silvered like frost. One night, as he sat beneath the stars, the gazelle came to him from the garden. Its eyes shone with human sorrow, and as it gazed upon him, tears welled once more. The father's heart stirred, and he whispered, "By Allah, those eyes are the eyes of my son." He went to the holy man of the village and told him all that had passed. The holy man, pure in heart and mighty in faith, took up his staff and said, "Bring the gazelle before me." He recited sacred verses and cast salt upon the ground. Then he raised his hands to heaven and prayed, "O you who turn night into day and grief into mercy, reveal the truth before us." And behold, before the eyes of all who stood there, the form of the gazelle trembled and changed. The air shimmered as though the world itself held its breath. And in the place of the gazelle stood the young man once more, his face radiant with life. The father wept with joy and fell upon his son's neck, praising the Almighty for his justice. But the false wife trembled, for her deceit was known. The holy man spoke, saying, "Evil done in secret is seen by heaven. Let her be punished as her malice deserves." So the father, with sorrow and resolve, turned to his servants and said, "Take her away, for mercy is not for those who destroy love with envy. Thus, the wicked woman was cast out. But heaven's justice is never blind. As she fled, her form began to waver. Her limbs grew slender. Her voice turned to a cry. And before the eyes of all, the envious wife became a gazelle, condemned to wander the desert she had wished upon the innocent. The holy man lifted his hands and said, "Let her roam as the creature she envied, so that in each mirror of still water she may remember the face she betrayed." When the old man had finished his tale before the demon, he said, "This, O mighty spirit, is my story. If you find it wondrous, then grant 1/3 of this merchant's life in my name." The demon pondered for a moment, his burning eyes softening. Then he said, "Your story is indeed strange and full of marvel. I grant what you ask." And so 1/3 of the merchant's life was redeemed. But before the demon could strike again, the second old man stepped forward, leading 2 black dogs by chains of silver. He bowed deeply and said, "O dread spirit, if you will hear my tale and find it more wondrous still, grant yet another 1/3 of this man's life." The demon folded his wings of smoke and fire and said, "Speak then, and I shall judge." Scheherazade looked toward the king and smiled faintly. "But, O king," she said softly, "the tale of the second old man and the 2 black dogs, that is a story for another night." And as the stars faded before the coming dawn, the king, his heart caught between awe and wonder, spared her life once more. Thus ended the second night. The third night. On the third night, when the moon rose once more above the silent palace and the lamps glowed like gentle stars, Scheherazade bowed her head and began her tale. She said, "O king, the heart of a tale is like a treasure chest. Open it, and wonders rise like birds. Hear now the story of the second old man and the 2 black dogs." She continued, "It is told, O king, that in a distant city there lived 3 brothers, sons of one father and one mother. The eldest was wise and fair. The younger 2 were clever but proud. When their father died, he left them equal shares of his wealth and his good name. They swore to remain united. But envy, O king, grows even among brothers. The younger 2 soon tired of the eldest's advice. They said, "Give us our share in gold, for we will travel by sea and find our fortune." The eldest warned them of danger, but they would not listen. They sold their portion, joined a charming sea captain, and sailed away. The eldest stayed behind and worked hard. In time, his trade prospered, and his name was honored in every market. One spring, he loaded his ship with fine goods and set sail to meet his brothers, hoping to embrace them again. But fate had written otherwise. He found their ship ruined at anchor and their fortune lost. The deceitful captain had stolen their money and fled. Ashamed and desperate, the younger brothers wandered the docks like beggars. The eldest brought them home and said kindly, "Rest here, for this house is still yours." But jealousy does not sleep, O king. Though he forgave them, their hearts still burned. When he later planned a voyage, they begged to join him. Trusting them once more, he agreed. The sea was calm, the winds gentle, and for 40 days they sailed in peace. On the 41st day, they reached a green island, surrounded by clear waters. They went ashore to rest, and there, beneath the shade of palms, they found a veiled woman sitting alone upon a stone. She rose and said, "Peace upon you, travelers. I am a castaway, the last of my people. Take me with you, and blessing shall come to your ship." The brothers looked upon her with suspicion, but the eldest pitied her and said, "Come with us, and you shall be safe." They lifted anchor at sunset, and from that night, fortune favored them. The winds were steady, the food fresh, and the sea calm. The younger brothers whispered, for jealousy had found a home again in their hearts. One night, under the lantern's glow, the woman came to the eldest and said, "Oh, honest man, I must tell you the truth. I am not as I appear. I am of the jinn, a believer who means no harm, and I was sent to test your heart. You showed mercy when others would have turned away, and so I will protect you. But beware, for the envy of your brothers burns bright." The eldest was astonished, but thanked her. She warned, "Be cautious, for danger is near." Before dawn, as he slept, his brothers rose and cast him into the dark sea. The water closed above him, and he prayed to God for mercy. Then a great wave lifted him and carried him to a distant shore. There stood the veiled woman, now shining with the light of the unseen. "Fear not," she said. "I saved you from death. Your brothers sleep on the ship, dreaming of their sin. Will you choose revenge or forgiveness?" He said, "Mercy is greater than vengeance." "Then sleep," she said, "and rise with the sun." She touched his brow, and he fell into a deep slumber. When he awoke, he was once again aboard his ship. His brothers were tied to the mast, and the woman stood at the front of the vessel, her veil glowing in the dawn. "You are safe," she said, "but remember my warning. The storm in their hearts is not yet quiet." He untied them and said, "Brothers, let us forget the past. We are one again." They kissed his hands and swore to be faithful. For a while, they kept their word, and the sea was kind to them. At last, they reached their homeland. The eldest divided their earnings equally and gave them rooms as before. That night, as the candles faded, the woman of the jinn appeared one last time. "I must return to my kind," she said, "but I will leave a gift and a warning. For 10 years, your brothers will harm you no more, for I shall mark them with my sign. But if their envy returns, do not shelter it again." She raised her hands, and a cool wind filled the house. The brothers cried out, and before his eyes, their forms changed. 2 black dogs now lay where they had stood, silent and trembling. "They are not destroyed," she said. "They are taught. 10 years they shall walk as beasts under your care, so they may learn humility and faithfulness. When their hearts have changed, I shall lift the curse." "It is a harsh fate," he whispered. "It is mercy," she replied. When the old man finished his tale, the demon bowed his fiery head and said, "Your story speaks of justice and mercy. I grant what you ask. 1/3 of the merchant's life shall be yours to save." And so, the merchant's hope was renewed. Then the third old man stepped forth, his mule standing beside him. He said, "O mighty spirit, hear my tale, and if it surpasses the others, grant the final third of this man's life in my name." Scheherazade looked toward the king and smiled softly. "But, O king," she said, "the tale of the third old man and the gray mule, that is a story for another night." And the king, caught once again between wonder and curiosity, spared her life for one more day. Thus ended the third night. The fourth night. When the fourth night came, and the moon once more cast her silver light upon the palace walls, Scheherazade bowed before the king and began. She said, "O king of time, patience is the crown of the wise. You have heard how 2 old men redeemed 2 parts of the merchant's life. Now, hear of the third, the old man with the gray mule, and how his tale saved the last." She continued, "It is told, O king, that this old man was once a healer of great renown, a sage who knew the language of herbs, the quiet paths of the wind, and the hidden pulse of the heart. He dwelt in a green valley, surrounded by hills, where springs ran clear as glass, and wild thyme perfumed the air. Peace lived there, and gratitude was his daily prayer. His wife was gentle and fair, and together they tended the sick and fed the poor. Their home was humble, yet blessed with laughter and the scent of cedarwood fire. One evening, when the swallows wheeled low and the sun sank behind golden fields, a traveler appeared at their gate, a woman in a cloak of silver, her eyes bright as the rising moon. "Peace upon you," she said. "I am weary from the road. Grant me rest and water." The old man, faithful to the law of kindness, welcomed her warmly. He brought her food and milk, washed the dust from her feet, and himself led her gray mule to drink from the spring. But his wife, watching from the doorway, felt a stirring of unease. "Why does this stranger smile upon him so?" she whispered to her heart. And jealousy took root where love had grown. What she did not know, O king, was that the traveler was not of mortal kind. She was a Genia, one of the unseen, who roamed the earth seeking herbs that could heal her people. At dawn she revealed her nature, saying, "You have shown me mercy, and I am bound to reward it. Ask what you wish." The healer bowed low and said, "I ask only that peace remain within my house." The Genia smiled. "Then peace shall dwell here until envy casts its shadow," she said, and vanished like morning mist. But envy, O king, is the worm in the fruit of joy. The wife's heart grew troubled. She brooded in silence. Each glance her husband gave the empty road seemed to her a secret longing, and her thoughts turned bitter as unripe olives. One night, when the moon was full and silver upon the garden, she slipped from her bed and went out alone. The air was cool, the herbs whispered in the wind. Lifting her hands, she cried, "Spirit of silver, come forth." The air trembled, and the Jinnia appeared in a glow soft as moon foam. "Why do you summon me, daughter of Adam?" The wife's voice quivered with anger. "You have bewitched my husband and stolen his heart." The Jinnia's eyes filled with sorrow. "Your tongue speaks envy, not truth," she said. "Beware what you wish, for words are mirrors of the soul." But the woman shouted, "I wish you gone forever, and his love mine alone." The spirit sighed. "Then let your jealousy be your chain." A flash of silver split the sky. Thunder rolled through the valley. When the light faded, the wife was gone, and in her place stood a gray mule, trembling among the herbs, her eyes wet with human tears. At that hour, the healer returned. Seeing what had befallen, he fell to his knees and cried, "O Spirit of mercy, forgive her folly. She was blinded by fear, not malice." The Jinnia appeared once more and said, "Because your heart pleads for her, she shall not perish. She will live 10 years in this form to learn humility and patience. Guard her well, and when her trial ends, seek me again. If your heart still remembers forgiveness." Then she vanished into the wind, leaving the garden silent under the moon. So the sage obeyed. He cared for the mule as for his own soul, leading her to pasture at dawn and sheltering her by night. When people mocked him, saying, "The wise man has lost his wits. He keeps a beast and calls it wife," he only smiled and answered, "Love is not broken by form. The soul beneath remains. Seasons turned like beads upon a string. He grew old and thin, yet peace never left his face." 10 years passed. One evening, as the valley glowed beneath the setting sun, a cool wind rose and shimmered with light. The Jinnia appeared, radiant as dawn. "Do you still forgive her?" she asked. The sage bowed his head. "Yes," he said, "but mercy belongs to God alone." The spirit smiled. "Your heart is pure. Her trial nears its end. Before her release, your compassion must save another. Tomorrow you shall meet a man in peril beneath a tree in the desert. Help him, and her redemption will be complete." And with that, she vanished like mist in the sun. When the old man finished his tale, the demon's burning eyes dimmed, and the earth itself seemed to sigh. At last, the spirit bowed his fiery head and said, "Your story speaks of mercy. The heart that forgives softens even the fire of wrath. By your word, the man is free, his life restored in full." Smoke curled upward and vanished into the sky. The gray mule brayed softly, and the healer bowed his head in gratitude. The 3 old men went their way, one with a gazelle, one with 2 black dogs, and one with a gray mule, each bearing the mark of mercy upon his heart. She paused, her eyes bright beneath the fading lamps. "But this, O king, was not the end of wonders. For beyond that desert, by the edge of another sea, fate had written a new tale of a fisherman, a jar of brass, and a spirit older than the world. King Shahryar leaned forward, his voice low with awe. "Then speak of it tomorrow," he said, "for I would hear how fate tangled the nets of men and jinn." Thus ended the fourth night.